Okay, in this video we go over pivot tables, and pivot tables are a very nice way in Excel to collapse a large data set, a large structured data set, into meaningful information. So here's a small database, but this small database has 400 records. Keep in mind a record is just a row, so in this case it's credit card transaction records. So this is one record. We're on a particular date, which was this day, this morning, this part of the United States. This particular credit card was used by this person who's been classified as a certain type of purchaser from us. They bought 4 items. This is the total cost, and this is the single most expensive item. And we have 400 records of that. So this particular database has 400 records. And it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 fields. The columns are the fields. And how can we take this and quickly turn it into information? And we can use a pivot table to do that. So pivot table, look what I did. I went under Insert, Pivot Table, and it grabbed all the data A1 to A401. And the reason it did that is because my cursor was over here. If I left my cursor here and did a pivot table, it doesn't know what to do. But if I put my cursor within the database, it doesn't make any difference which cell, insert pivot table, it correctly grabbed A1 through J401. You could manually grab it if you wanted to, but I'm going to use this. Where do you want the pivot table to show up? I'm going to let it generate a new worksheet and not use this one. This is the safer choice. Occasionally, if you use the existing one, you might overwrite existing data. So don't do that unless you know exactly where you want to put it. I'm using a new worksheet. What happens is that it creates a new worksheet, and then over on the right are the different fields, the 11 fields that we had, and we use these and we drag these down to this part to build our table, which shows up over here. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to take this data set and I'm going to try to collapse it and see where people are buying things from us. So if I would just bring in the region, and look at that, just like that, I know that this particular database, we have 4 regions in the United States. I didn't know that I had 4 before this, but now I know I have 4, exactly 4, and these are the 4 regions. I can bring that same field over to here, and because that particular field is qualitative, it only has letters or words in it, all it can do is count because this is nominal data. So when I drop in the region over here, look what it does. It counts how many of the 400 records had a Midwest, from the Midwest region. And so like that, I've got it, and look what happens when I select off, it goes away. If I select over here, you get the pink up at the top or purple, or that color. And you get the pivot table builder over on the right side. So I can look at that and I can see that I get more people buying from the West and fewer from the Midwest. If you don't like looking at numbers and you want to look at a graph, if you have the graph and you go up, or you have the pivot table selected, you go under Analyze, Pivot Chart. It'll build a graph of that. You can build any graph you want. So that might help you, and when you look at graphs, you look for the biggest and the smallest. So the West and the Northeast are the biggest, and the other ones aren't. Okay, well that's a pretty simple one, but I can also build a 2-dimensional one. I could bring something over here, so let's slice this by card type. I'm going to bring card type over here. Now I've got Midwest by card type, and it gives me a table now, a 2-dimensional table. So the number of times that the elect mart was used from people from the Midwest was 17 times, and then some other credit card was used 54 times. So I can look again at these, and the blue are the elect mart, and the red are the others, and the regions are still across the bottom. Well, I could bring in something else. I could do something, maybe look at gender. And again, because these are just, this count of region is qualitative, all we're getting are counts. And so I can look at that in the Northeast and West, Well, for the most part, women buy more than men, but in the Northeast and the West, it's pretty close. In the South and Midwest, women buy more than men. Well, what if I want something besides counts? The only way that you can get something besides counts is to drop in something. Let's drop in the total cost. Now, when you drop in the total cost, the first thing that it does, it no longer counts because total cost is a number. It's a number. And so what the default pivot table choice is that rather than counting, it sums. It sums. Now you may want to sum, so this gives you the total dollar amounts purchased by women from the Midwest was 6,383. And that might be exactly what you want. But if you want to change that, so look what I can do. I'm going to hit the drop down arrow and go to Value Field Settings. And the default is sum, but you could go back to count. But probably a real useful one is the average. And this gives you the average purchase by gender, by region. So what we can look at is that there's not much difference between men and women. It looks like the average purchase is higher in the West and Northeast. The only place where there's a discrepancy is that it looks like in the Midwest, men on average don't spend as much as women. Again, this is all good marketing research or some type of research that we could use, but pivot tables are a nice handy way to collapse any type of data into information quickly. I think that's a good stopping point for pivot tables. We'll use them more as we move on in quality. Thanks.